Ngayong umaga sa Buhay Mo Inspirasyon Ko, his first attempt at telling his own story intertwined with money, God-orchestrated journey of being set free from the slavery to money by following the countercultural biblical teachings on wealth and possessions. He is now a full-time alternative missionary with a God-given vision to unveil the deceitfulness of wealth to Christ followers globally in hope to cure the root problem of many social ills. Please welcome to Chink Positive this morning, writer and spokesperson for stewardship and generosity, Roger Lam.
Hi, good morning, Roger.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, it's really an honor and pleasure to have you in our show. Mga kapatid, for this day, medyo magno-nosebleed lang po tayo. Kasi ang ating panauhin po ay hindi marunong po mag-Filipino. So we're gonna speak in English, but from time to time, I'll try to translate it in our own native language. Okay. So, Roger, can you please give us an idea how was your childhood and what are the ups and downs that you have experienced when you were still young?
Well, my grandfather founded a very successful paint business in Hong Kong, and he also co-founded a church in the 1930s. So I'm a fourth-generation Christian.
Wow.
So growing up, I was very proud to be associated with this brand, and I didn't have to worry about money or provision at all. Now, my troubles began when I was 13.
So probably before the troubles began, probably I want for people to appreciate a good lifestyle in Hong Kong, because here in the Philippines, it's quite rare for people to have really a privileged life. But in Hong Kong, for you to have a privileged life, can you please describe us the comfort and the luxury that you're experiencing in Hong Kong when you were young?
Well, we lived in a house with a large garden. I mean, later on, I found out we actually didn't own it. We rented it for a very long time.
It's a lease.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it was still, a very large house, very nice garden, and we had an ama to raise us, and we had a driver to take us around.
Wow. In Hong Kong, for you to have a piece of garden, that's pretty impossible because the prices of property there is too high, right?
Yeah, so I think my grandfather and their whole family lived there since maybe the 1950s or something like that.
So having a chauffeur also, having a driver also is kind of different if you're staying in Hong Kong, right? So anything you want during that time you can buy, I'm sure.
Basically, yes.
Okay. So so what happened when you were 13? You were saying?
Yeah. So my grandfather was probably overly generous. He only gave 10% of the shares in the company to my dad, and even though he was running the business for him, my granduncle and his sons collectively owned more shares than my dad. And when I was 13, they pulled in a PRC businessman to come in and launch a hostile takeover on our family business.
And diluted your father's shares.
Well, it was the shareholdings were fairly loose. There was no single major shareholder, so they started a proxy fight for the company.
Yes, exactly. So there was a takeover. So what happened to the 10% share of your father?
In the end, after a year of fighting the other party, my dad narrowly lost out to them, so he had to tender his shares at a suboptimal valuation.
So was that already the start of the downfall in terms of your finances for your family?
Well, I mean, I was never in need per se. But what I had lost is my sense of security. I was painfully aware that I had lost, succession rights to the business. I had lost my birthright, and I had lost basically, this pillar of financial security.
Were you the eldest, Roger?
Yes.
For those people who are watching right now, Miss Marlene, pag ikaw yung in a Chinese family, if you are the eldest, ikaw yung aasahan, ikaw yung tagapagmana talaga ng mga negosyo. Dahil nga sa pangyayari po nga niya, nagkaroon ng corporate takeover po, yung mga kamag-anak incorporated po niya. Ang nangyari po, talagang naging ganit po, siya ay natanggalan ng karapatan. So you were stripped of the right of really probably succeeding the business and helping run the business. Is that right?
Correct, sir.
Yes. So after that, what happened?
So my dad didn't want to stick around in Hong Kong, so he moved our family of 4 to Vancouver in Canada.
Okay. So you went to Canada. So how's life in Canada during that time, and how old were you?
Oh, I was 14 when we moved there, and my personality just completely changed upside down. I became very driven, but by fear and anger. I really wanted revenge.
Yes. Alam mo, ito yung mga tipong mga pelikulang napapanood po natin, di ba? Na talagang inapi-api, di ba? Imagine mo, tinanggalan ka na ng negosyo, yung mga sarap sa buhay, di ba?
Mga kamag-anak mo pa.
Oo, kamag-anak. And what's really so painful, actually, it was the relative or the uncle who did that. And then we always have a saying, the people who are closest to us are the people who can hurt us most. So because of that pain, it drove you to do something. Okay, so what's your motivation during that time to get even? Is that right?
Well, because I had no other means of making a name for myself and to make a lot of money and to be successful. So now I felt I had to rely on my own strength.
So you were back to zero. You were at the ground level, right?
In a way, but then as I said, I mean, I was never in need, so my parents were able to send me and my sister to a very good university in the U.S. and everything.
Okay. Sige, can we continue? So after that, what happened?
So I studied really hard, and I just treated all my new peers as kind of like enemies, and I just felt that I had to beat everybody and to get super good scores. Otherwise, there would be no chance for me to ever making a comeback. So life became a little bit miserable when you live and operate that way.
So you became very competitive.
Exceedingly.
So can you please give us a little bit, like for example, give a specific example of being competitive?
Basically, the whole term I would get, 100 marks on math, and if I just slip on a little something, I would get really upset.
Wow.
And I would, kind of like, so other kids might threaten me on other things, and my comeback to them would be on using test scores.
Wow.
Okay.
So you were I'm sure you're pretty smart, right? So you were studious during that time, right?
Well, I'm okay, I guess.
So from that experience, what happened next?
So that hard work brought me to Cornell University in New York State, and I just carried basically the same modus operandi. I again worked really hard. It was all about GPA optimization. It was not about the love of learning, and again, basically seeing everyone as a potential enemy, and I had to basically come out on top. Otherwise, there's no chance of success.
So you succeeded, and you went from graduate school. What happened next? What job did you get into, or what business?
I ended up getting a job at a hedge fund in Chicago. It was a very non-straightforward path to getting a job. I applied to a lot of jobs, but even though I had a really high GPA and I graduated with the highest honors, I think my EQ was so low and distorted that a lot of employers, I think they're actually really smart. By the final rounds of interviews, I think they sense that there's something wrong with this kid.
Okay.
He's not going to fit into our training program.
Okay.
That type of deal. So long story short, there was only one job that I got. I did not know what trading was. I didn't know what derivatives or convertible bonds were. And I certainly didn't know what a hedge fund was. But somehow God had placed me in the best possible job to start my career.
Yeah. Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
It was well, first of all, it was the highest starting salary job for all of Cornell undergrads in 1993, as far as as far as I understand. And that, I mean, it's become a very successful hedge fund, and it was a very good platform to be part of.
So you experienced success at a very young age.
Yes, sir.
So what did that do to you?
It got my head even bigger.
This is it.
Yeah, it got my head bigger, and it made me. It gave me a false. It gave me a false illusion that that hey, this is working. You know, your hard work and basically, you know, just seeing everyone as a potential enemy. That's working.
So on that part, so how, and then after that career, did it go from one career to the other, or you just stayed with that organization?
Well, after about a year and a half, I moved back to Hong Kong, and then I stayed within investment banking. I joined a Swiss bank, and then I worked for a number of Swiss banks for quite a long time.
So were you experiencing also the same success, just like what you experienced in that hedge fund company?
Yes.
Okay.
And I got a series of promotions fairly quickly, so it definitely got to my head.
So how old were you during that time?
When I moved back to Hong Kong?
Yes.
I moved back to Hong Kong when I was 22 and a half. And shortly after that, I got a promotion to associate director. And then 2 years later, when I was 25, I made director.
Wow.
Yeah, so at that point, it seemed like, you know, it was on a very high trajectory of promotions.
Okay, so what I'm more interested, Marlene, at the same time, for those people who are listening right now, is where on the part of your life that you were able to probably reconnect probably with your old relatives. Did that happen? But before you talk about that, we're gonna pause for a short break. Ang Philippine Standard Time po right now ay
6:31 in the morning.
at magbabalik muli ang
Think positive.
Home credit, home credit. Pag gusto mo ng cash for a trip or bagong gadget, download lang ang app. Home credit, cash loan na.
Gusto mo ng cash para sa trip or bagong gadget? I-home credit mo na. Just download My Home Credit app. In as fast as 1 minute approval, loan as much as 50,000 pesos cash.
Download lang ang app. Home credit, cash loan na.
SEC registration number CS20130134 is under HC Consumer Finance Philippines Incorporated. Please read carefully the terms and conditions before proceeding with a loan transaction.
Loan up to 50,000 pesos with home credit. Get approved anytime, anywhere, and pay up to 30 months. Download the My Home Credit mobile app on Google Play. Home Credit Cash Loan na.
Kung dito ka sa Valenzuela City nag-apply ng business permit, nakuha mo na by the time matapos ako magsalita. Paspas Permit, online permit system from Valenzuela. Anong pinagkapareho ng commercial na ito at ng business permit processing sa Valenzuela City? Pareho silang tapos na in 10 seconds. Paspas Permit, online permit system from Valenzuela. Anong kaya mong makuha sa Valenzuela City in just 10 seconds? Business permit. O, kuha mo na? Paspas Permit, online permit system from Valenzuela.
Valenzuela City's Paspas Permit. Business permit in just 10 seconds.
Be strong, be courageous, Chink positive.
Sa Radyo Singko at 1PH sa Signal Channel 6.
Yes. Nagbabalik muli ang Chink Positive. Kasama pa rin natin si Miss Marlene Alcaide at iyong abang lingkod, Chinkee Tan, at ang ating special guest na galing from Hong Kong, Mr. Roger Lam. Kanina pinag-uusapan po natin ang kanyang buhay. Pinanganak po siya na talagang mayaman at maganda po ang kanyang buhay. At di lang po yun. Ano po nangyari? Nang dahil po dyan ay talagang lahat ng gusto nila ay nakukuha po nila. Bigla na lang po nangyari po. May mga kamag-anak po sila na talagang kinuha po ang kanilang negosyo nang dahil po dyan napilitan silang umalis sa Hong Kong at sila po ay pumunta ng Canada at doon po sila nanirahan. Pero despite of that, pinadala pa rin siya ng kanyang magulang sa Amerika para mag-aral doon. Nung graduate po siya, naging isang matagumpay siyang isang hedge fund sa may Amerika, at dahil doon pumunta siya ng Hong Kong at pinagpatuloy po niya yung career at gumanda po ang kanyang career at the age of 25. Naging director na po na siyang isang malaking organisasyon sa may Hong Kong. So ipagpapatuloy po natin ang kanyang kwento. Tatanungin po natin Ano po ang nangyari sa Hong Kong nung bumalik siya? So what happened already in Hong Kong when you went back with your relatives? Were you able to get in touch, or what? Can you please tell us more about it?
We never really got back in touch.
Oh.
Until now.
I think ever since the takeover, I've probably seen them once.
Accidentally or
No, I think that was a deliberate reconciliation meal.
really?
Yes.
So who initiated it?
I think it was my grandmother.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. So definitely you told us that you were so bitter about it. You were so resentful about it. So what happened during that meeting?
Well, the meal happened, I think, a few years ago, maybe.
Oh, really? It's just only a few years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
So much time had elapsed, and and I've had my success. I've had a lot of ups and downs, and then, and basically at that point, I was already a new creation. So I didn't carry a grudge anymore, and I certainly didn't have any. I didn't harbor any thoughts of revenge or whatever anymore.
Yeah, but before we even talk about that, probably let's talk more about your journey, about you having an encounter, because you told us that you are already a fourth generation believer or a Christian. Yes, you follow Christ, and that's pretty strange also for a Hong Konger to also be believing in God, because most of them are Buddhists and they believe in Taoism. So for you, that's kind of strange. But during that time, even though you were a believer already, do you have already a personal relationship, or you just follow what your parents are doing?
Up till the year 2003, I was just a token Christian. It was head knowledge. I just went to church, with my parents. Yeah, that type of deal.
So what happened, and what was the turnaround that made you realize that you need to have a personal relationship with God?
Well, in 2003, I hit a really low point in my life. I got hit with two personal tragedies within the span of 24 hours. One was work-related. The other was a personal relationship issue.
Let's talk about work-related. What happened?
I got passed over for a very significant promotion.
Okay. So especially being a competitive person, how did that affect you?
It was very difficult to swallow. It was very, very difficult to swallow.
So did you experience also the thing? Can you remember probably the takeover that happened during that time?
I felt worse, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Because this time, I think in hindsight, the takeover, I was completely out. It was completely out of my hands. I had no active participation to change the outcome of that. But this time around, I thought, I was in control, and based on my intellect and my hard work and all that, why is this still happening? So I think that's why I felt worse.
Yes.
Possibly.
Did you go into depression because of that?
Maybe not clinically, but I certainly felt pretty sad. But that was only part one of the two hits.
Because that was on the same day you said that, right?
Certainly within 24 hours.
So after that, what happened next?
Well, I had already identified an engagement ring diamond.
Okay.
And my girlfriend at the time, just suddenly said, let's break up.
For how many years?
We were dating for maybe about 2 years.
For what reason?
Never disclosed.
Wow.
Okay. So how did you handle that?
I was really down. I just felt really, really down.
How old were you during that time?
I was 31.
Man, 31 years old. At 31 years old, kailangan maunawaan nyo mga kapatid. 31 ka na, matagumpay kang tao, you're pretty successful, and then all of a sudden, nawala yung success. All of a sudden, it was pulled under, and the rag was pulled under you. Not only that, but in terms of your love life and your emotional life, what basically happened, and it just disappeared. So what? I'm sure during that night time, what happened next? Were you asking God during that time?
I didn't even know. I didn't even resort to prayer. I mean, I was that far removed from having a real relationship with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what did you do?
I went to church that Sunday, and there I ran into an ex-colleague from a Swiss bank from the mid-90s. And for a whole year, she's been asking me to go to her small group, her Bible study. And I had always refused up till that point. But when she asked me again on that Sunday, she clearly had no idea what had just happened to me.
Yeah.
I just thought, well, you've lost everything now. So what's so scary about a small group?
Okay. So you went there, so tell us more.
So I went there and I discovered immediately that, the people in the life group, in the small group, they're no saints either.
Yeah.
And then basically I'm at least 50 percentile in terms of my biblical knowledge, probably because I've, gone to Sunday school and church all my life. And, immediately I felt like I fit in and they became my new friends.
Wow, that's good. So because of that new friendship, how did that help you?
For the first time in my life, I was willing to listen to other people's problems.
Because most of the time, what happens?
In the past, it was all very narcissistic. I focused 100% on my well-being.
Yeah, you were just thinking about yourself,
Yes.
your career, your success. But right now, it's the other way around. So people are starting to share their concerns with you, right?
Yes.
And then after that, what happened next?
And then, we also as part of the small group, we also did some outreach. And it moved me a lot. It's started to visit a lot of underprivileged elderly people who were living by themselves, even though their health was in very poor shape. Nobody took care of them, and they lived in very, very poor conditions. And I just brought them a small care bag and, sat down with them, chatted with them in their home for like 10-15 minutes, and it gave them so much happiness. And then that started to really move me.
Wow. So was that also a turning point in your life that you found purpose?
I believe so.
Wow.
I believe so.
Yeah. Friends, parati ko yung sinasabi, I always tell people, if you're disappointed and you're sad about your situation, the reason why you're sad and disappointed about your situation because you always compare yourself with others who are better than you, who are more fortunate than you. But if you start looking at other people who are less fortunate than you, yung mga taong mas kapos sa'yo, mas wala, you know what? You will start to feel better because you're comparing yourself with the wrong people, with the wrong group of people. So that's what basically happened to him. And because of that, what happened next?
I started to, started to learn to love God and love others, and started a personal relationship with Jesus. But my deepest hurts remained in the area of money and my sense of insecurity over provision.
Can we elaborate more on what you said a moment ago, having a personal relationship with Jesus? Because here in the Philippines, I'll just give you a context. Most of us here as Filipinos, we were raised in a Catholic country. We're pretty aware that there's God. We're pretty aware of we go to church on a Sunday. Just like what you experienced for so long at 22 or 22 years. But having a personal relationship, can you please expound more on having a personal relationship?
I realize that I'm saved by grace. It is not by works, and it's exclusively by what Jesus did on the cross. I don't deserve salvation, but he gave that to me as a very costly gift to him because he had to die on the cross for that.
So, and then you accepted Christ during that time, right?
Actually, I got baptized a lot younger as a teenager, but, again, that was going through the motions.
Yeah, so that was, how old were you during the time when you realized that you really need God in your life?
Oh, it's basically 2003, 2004. I was 30, in my early 30s.
Your early 30s. So when you recommitted your life to Christ, what happened next?
Well, in 2005, the following year, I heard a full-length sermon on tithing for the first time in my life. And I made a very uneducated decision. And that is, I decided to follow biblical teaching in the area of money and possessions as the first area of my life to be congruent to biblical teaching. Whereas before I wasn't, deliberately following any particular biblical teaching.
Yeah, when you talk about tithing, mga kapatid, ang ibig sabihin pa ng tithing, ikapo, ha? Ikapo. Ano ibig sabihin ng kapo? Yung kung anong tinatanggap natin sa Panginoon, nagsusoli po tayo ng porsyento po. Para sa ibang tao, ang tawag niya, Marlene, aray ko po, yung basket po, umiikot po, sana lumagpas po, magkano bibigay mo, depende po.
Donation.
No, we're talking about the 10% that we return to the Lord. Okay. So, basically, what did you learn from that concept?
Well, I learned that at the end of after what I learned is that this is the bare minimum that we need to do in order to act justly towards God.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a way to honor Him, and it really belongs to Him. What I discovered is that everything that I have,
Mm-hmm.
even the ability to make money,
Mm-hmm.
it comes from God. If He didn't give me my life, my breath, my heartbeat, my intellect, my education, my platform, I would have no chance of making anything.
Wow. So you started to practice the principle of tithing.
Yes.
See, and then after, when you practice it, it's completely antithesis, no? When you say antithesis, hindi po ano yan eh. He's a businessman, and as a investor, you only bring out money when there's a return, right? So it's highly complete antithesis. At the same time, it's kind of strange for you to give out money to an organization if there's no return. So how were you able to overcome that type of a mindset or a way of thinking? But before you talk about that, we're gonna pause for a short break, mga kapatid. Ang Philippine Standard Time po right now ay
6:45 in the morning.
at magbabalik muli ang
Chink
Chink Positive.
Inuman na kasama ang tropa. Huwag kalimutan ang kapitan ng inuman. Gin Kapitan. Sarap ng init at hagod na kayang-kayang kapitan. Para sa tropang walang iwanan. Kapit-kapit lang. Gin Kapitan. Kayang-kaya mo yan. Drink responsibly.
Gin Kapitan, kayang-kaya mo yan.
Dito sa Valenzuela City, business permits are done in 10 seconds. Mas mabilis pa kaya sa pag-announce ko. Paspas Permit, online permit system from Valenzuela. Sobrang simple at sobrang bilis ng business permit processing sa Valenzuela City. 10 seconds lang, tapos na. Parang commercial na to. Paspas Permit, online permit system from Valenzuela. Sa Valenzuela City, you can get your business permit in as fast as 10 seconds. Oh, may time ka pa. Paspas Permit, online permit system from Valenzuela.
Valenzuela City's Paspas Permit. Business permit in just 10 seconds.
Transmitting live from our brand new studios at TV5 Media Center and Reliance Mandaluyong. By land, by sea, and on air. Mula sa pinakabaksyong newsroom sa buong bansa. 25,000 watts. Radyo Singko, 92.3 News FM. Iwanan mo na ang lumang tunog ng AM. Be inspired. Be motivated. Chink Positive.
Sa Radyo 5 at 1PH sa Signal Channel 6.
Okay, nagbabalik po ang Chink Positive. We're pretty excited about the news. Para sa mga taong probably nagtatanong, ano ba tong ikapu na ito? Ano ba tong tithing na ito? Ikukwento po sa atin ni Ginoong Roger Lam kung ano ba talaga yung principle ever since siya po ay nagsusoli na ikapu. Kung kayo po ay hindi naniniwala, walang pilitan po dito. Pero para sa kanya po, ever since he practiced the principle of tithing, can you please tell us what happened to your finances?
Well, I never put the normal finance framework to my tithing. I never equated it as an investment that I needed an immediate return to it. I think and praise God that the foundation of really feeling that deep sense of gratitude for Jesus, that I owe Him my whole life.
Wow.
Yeah. So what's 10%? I have at the time I was thinking, well, you've done so much for me. You only want 10%. I still quote unquote keep the 90. So I thought, wow. I mean, thank you, God. You're so generous.
That's a good deal. You know how was I set free from my stinginess? Paano ko na set free? I used to rob from him. I don't return the 10%. But I got a revelation from a businessman. He said, okay, do you believe that God is your partner? I said, yes. Do you pray to God for your blessing? I said, yes. So do you ask Like for example, if you have a partner in business, let's say we're partner, and if the profit comes, how should we share the profit? It's 50-50. And he said, haven't you realized that you have found the greatest partner in the world, that he never requires 50%? He only requires 10%, and you dare not to return his share. How can you be a good partner? And because of that revelation, it removes my stinginess and my greediness in my heart. And I told him, God, you deserve more than 10%. So ever since that time, I faithfully learned how to faithfully return to him. And I say, I don't give my tithes, I return, because you cannot give what you do not own.
Right.
Yes. So, I return my tithes. Para sa mga kapatid, kung kayo hindi naniniwala, okay lang. Walang basagan na ng trip, ha. But if you believe that you want to be generous back to God, no, you return. No matter what your denomination is, whether you're Catholic, you're Protestant, you're Evangelical, you're Iglesia, it doesn't really matter. Ang pinag-uusapan po natin ay acknowledgement na ang Diyos po ang nagbibigay po sa atin ng lahat. So, can we continue more on that? So, right now, let's talk more about your ministry. You go around churches, nations, all around the world. So what's your message? You have books also. Please tell us more about it.
Yeah. So the vision and mission that that God has given me is through His help and His power. I need to unveil the deceitfulness of wealth, because a lot of Christians are not as fruitful as they ought to be for the kingdom. And the main reason is the deceitfulness of wealth and the cares of this world. So it appears that what God wants me to do is to take on mammon and do battle with mammon, and to help more Christians to genuinely serve God and not serve money, because Jesus Himself said you can only serve one of the two masters.
Exactly.
So, and it's actually very foolish to serve money, because what I was given a revelation about what I call the ultimate truth about money.
So what was the revelation?
The revelation is, no matter how much money you have, even let's say if you have, $1 trillion, $1 trillion.
Yeah.
If we use that as our basis for comfort on this lifetime, that's fine. Now, our maximum lifespan is 120 years. That's already been capped ever since Genesis chapter 6, verse 3. But let's say that you can bring that $1 trillion with you to heaven. Now, the issue is, how long is eternity?
Compared to the 1 trillion, yeah.
So 1 trillion divided by infinity, it's basically
nothing.
It's nothing. You cannot even buy a grain of rice.
Yeah.
So the ultimate truth about money is, no matter how much money you have, even if you could bring it with you to heaven, it is still not going to cut it. We need true riches. We need to be rich towards God. We need to have eternal treasure. And the Bible spells out very clearly that we can accrue that while we're here.
And you know what was the revelation that I had regarding that? When King Solomon said that everything is meaningless, and I told, hey, because you're rich, because I have nothing during that time. I was poor, that broke and poor. And but when God gave me an opportunity also to experience some comfort, this is what I've realized. Even if I can buy 5 houses, how many beds can I go to sleep every night? Only one. I cannot ask someone, please wake me up every 2 hours so that I can transfer to the other house and I can get to enjoy. Okay, even I have 7 cars right now. 7 cars. How many cars can I drive and sit on whenever I go out? Just one. Even if I can afford to eat at the fanciest restaurant, breakfast, lunch, and dinner buffet, if I do that, I will really be early to meet God, because I will develop a lot of diseases. So that's what I've realized and discovered. There's a purpose of money. Money is a tool,
yes,
to make your life better, but not only your life, but also to help others. So right now, can you tell us more about your books?
Yeah, so Lost and Found is the first book that I wrote. It documents the first 46 years of my journey.
Wow.
Basically, starting from my childhood, how I had that dip, and then how I tried to make a comeback, and then how I tried to rely on myself, how I fell again, and then how, and in my deepest pit, how God picked me up and then healed me of my insecurity over money and possessions. So this is basically a book on stewardship.
Wow.
But I don't have the authority to teach. I'm a nobody. I don't have a seminary degree or anything. So this is kind of like a reality show.
Yeah. It's
This
a
is
personal.
all personal.
Yeah.
And it's super transparent.
Yeah. And the second book?
And then when I finished this book, it ended on me making a pledge to God on making a donation to the church to buy its premises. Right after I submitted the final draft to the publisher on this one, then something supernatural happened.
What happened?
Well, I received multimedia
attention.
No, multimedia messages from God.
Okay.
And it was very counterintuitive in choosing to obey. Basically, in a very good market, during early Trumponomics, the market tanked one Friday. It dropped by 666 points.
That's really bad.
That's really bad. And then also the pledge that I made was had doubled in value. So I prayed to God. I said, what should I do? I can just sell it. So the 2 days later on the Sunday, I not only did I hear a very clear word from God that I should sell, and then when I was doing my quiet time an hour later, because I switched from NIV version, I switched to the Message.
Okay.
Every day I read at least one chapter of Proverbs.
Wow.
So that day is Proverbs chapter 4. Proverbs chapter 4 verse 5 in NIV says, "Get wisdom, get understanding." That's, doesn't mean a lot, right?
For the Message.
For the Message, it says, "Sell everything and buy wisdom."
Wow.
So I still feel the goosebumps, even though this must be the 300th time I've told the story. So I decided to obey, even though it was against my professional
intuitive. Yeah.
So I sold I sold everything on Monday.
Wow.
Asia, Europe, the US,
Yes.
the whole portfolio.
Yes.
The next day,
it crashed.
Correct. The next day, I found out that the Dow Jones Index dropped by 1,500 points.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay. So you profited during the time when you sold?
Yes. But
it's also saved you from crashing.
Yes, absolutely. There's no denial about that.
Yeah.
But at one point I was thinking, well, maybe I've become like a super steward status. God is now telling me when to sell high, and I'm just going to ask him when to buy low again. But he never told me that. Instead, what he told me is just to be still.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just be still.
Okay. And that's the second book that you wrote.
Well, that's the first 1/4 of the second book. And then, so I knew I had to basically write another book because that is just such an incredible story. But what I didn't know was what God had in mind. This book is actually about total surrender. So after God taking control of my money life, he then took over control in my vocation. He took over control in my sense of personal security in terms of where he started to take me around the world for ministry.
Wow.
And then ultimately he took over control in my sense of purpose for my life.
So right now, what do you do? Full time, what do you do right now?
I'm an author and speaker, and wherever God calls me, wherever doors open, I never say no.
So technically you live by faith right now?
Correct.
Wow, really amazing. Yeah, we're on the same path. I also live by faith. Pretty interesting. So right now, we have a final few more minutes. Can you please address the people right now who are experiencing probably also downs and probably people who are experiencing something up right now. They have everything in life, but they find no meaning, they find no purpose. Can you please address those people, especially who have achieved something in life? Go.
Right. Well, first for the people who are relatively downtrodden at the moment, I just want to encourage you that there is hope, and the hope, is found in Jesus. This lifetime is relatively short. It's only a maximum 120 years, but the rewards that await for us in eternity is unimaginable, and that there are a lot of promises in the Bible that promises that we will be much more than compensated for the trials and the hardships that we go through in this life. And so don't give up on hope. Now, for those who are overly successful, my word of advice is to not be prideful, and start like what Chinkee said earlier. Start divesting a little bit of your attention. Try investing in one person's life, where God will always place at least one or two or three people within your periphery of vision and within your sphere of influence. Just try to invest in one person. Don't just write them a check. Don't just toss them some money, but actually hear them out. Really feel them as another human being, and because Jesus died for them also. They're also God's children.
Great. So what church do you belong to in Hong Kong?
It's called Community Church Hong Kong.
Community Church Hong Kong. It's somewhere, what street?
It's in Sheung Wan.
Sheung Wan. So guys, thank you very much. Let's thank Roger. Palakpakan naman natin si Sir Roger Lam. Come on. So right now, do you have other speaking engagements for today? Save Radio tomorrow. Okay, great. So this is what we're going to do. We're gonna pause for a short commercial break, and magbabalik po ulit ang ating programa. So huwag kayong mawawala. Ang Philippine Standard Time po right now ay
7:01 in the morning.
at magbabalik muli ang Ching Positive.